Hi all. Tonight, before we start the Q&A, we invited our instructor, Eric Conner, to give one of his fabulous introduction to Kevin. And welcome, Eric.
And welcome, Tova. So nice to see you again. Hello to our Zoom audience. Tova, anything you want to say before I dive in?
No,
Let's do it.
Want to hear your introduction.
Well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming and being part of this and having an opportunity to hear from. Not everyone wants to be called a legend, but I'm gonna use the word legend. I'm gonna use comedy legend to describe Kevin Nealon, and I hope he's okay with that. And if not, I'll see myself out. So one of the, I guess, reasons I'm here talking for a moment is, one, I teach in the writing department here at New York Film Academy, and two, my students this week actually have to do work on sketch writing. That's their homework. And if you're watching this, that's a reminder. I'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Looking forward to seeing your sketches. And three,
Sketch comedy, right?
Oh,
Sketch.
yeah. Well, no, it's tragic sketches. Or I guess we'll see how they write them. But
Okay.
also, I have been a fan of Saturday Night Live since they had this guy on, John Belushi, as the samurai warrior. And Kevin Nealon was part of Saturday Night Live for, I believe it was 9 seasons. At the time, that was the longest running tenure, although Kenan Thompson, I think, is setting a record like Cal Ripken's in baseball that will never be beat. But for those years, Kevin Nealon worked in so many different ways with Saturday Night Live. He was a writer. He hosted Weekend Update. He also famously played Tarzan, one of my favorite characters, Mr. Subliminal, and of course, Franz from Hans and Franz. And he was responsible for one of the sketches my wife and I probably quote every year, when he played a valet in a bathroom built for only one person. I believe Harvey Keitel was the guest host. And he goes in and Kevin Nealon plays it completely straight. Some of the driest, most brilliant comedy you'll ever see. And you'll never look at a single bathroom the same way again. But beyond that, so Saturday Night Live, 9 years, you'd say, okay, well, that's a career. And then he did a show called Weeds, which was also on for almost that long. And Weeds was 100 plus episodes. And it's interesting because now it's a period piece. Because now if you want weed in California, I don't know, go next door. It's there. But at the time, it was still illegal. So the story of a suburban housewife selling weed to her local suburban neighbors, including Kevin Nealon's character, Doug Wilson, was basically like cutting edge, shocking. It was a comedy, but also it had tension, it had drama, and it showed just how much Kevin Nealon could do when on camera. He could play all of it, and he has continued to do that. He has close to 100 credits beyond Weeds, which was on for over 100 episodes, beyond Saturday Night Live, where he was there for almost a decade. He continues to work, and you'll see him do his own podcast, where instead of driving in a fancy car, getting coffee, he's walking on the trails of LA. And I'm really impressed, Kevin. Your Apple Watch must be very proud of you for all the steps you take. He also, occasionally, you'll see him in Crank Yankers as a puppet making crank phone calls, which he also does brilliantly. And who knew that he also, I knew he could write, but who knew he could draw? In I Exaggerate, his book, nicknamed My Brushes with Fame, it's not only a really wonderful and at times poignant story of his life in comedy and his life in Hollywood, it also includes amazing portraits, caricatures he does along the line of, if you know, New Yorker's Al Hirschfeld or Mort Drucker from Mad Magazine. And so this is a guy who may be more than just a legend. He is truly a Renaissance man. I've spoken enough. Ladies and gentlemen, the legend, Kevin Nealon, who's over there. Kevin, would you kindly turn on your camera so we can see your...
Sorry, I couldn't get the curtain open. Eric, you're right. Eric is a great introducer. You really did your research on me, and I really wish I was your student.
Well, if you want to come to class, I know you're in New York. I'll Zoom you in, no charge.
Thank you. Anyway, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much, really, for showing up here. Amazing. You know, it's such a treat. So we love your work.
Thank you.
film, TV, stand-up, doodling, and we want to ask you a lot of questions about it.
Okay.
First, how did you start in the business?
Well, what I did was, you mean in the show business thing? What I
Yeah.
did was I started, no, not yet.
Oh,
I
I'll ask you
I
about
started
this in a
I
minute.
know, guys, don't put it up there yet. What I did was I started in stand-up, guys, I'm trying to think. I started in stand-up, and that was my first thing. Sorry about that. I started going to the open mic nights in Los Angeles to be a stand-up comic. And I did that for a couple of years. And you know, it's kind of I'm getting very good at telling this story. I'm truncating it. I hung out at the Improv a lot. I got a job as a bartender there for a couple of years. I got to hang out with comedians and watch them all, everyone from Andy Kaufman to Robin Williams coming in with the suspenders from just doing Mork, and Jay Leno and Steve Martin and Richard Pryor, and you know, all of these greats. And I really learned that way. And I just kept getting up until I could quit my bartending job and go out on the road and be a stand-up. And that's all I ever wanted to be, was a stand-up comic. But then commercials started coming, and I took those. And then TV shows, guest starring, you know, and then I did the talk shows with Johnny Carson and David Letterman. And then some other acting came into play. And then I got Saturday Night Live, which I've never done sketch work before, or written sketches. And then after there, I went to Weeds. And then I went to a show called Man with a Plan with Matt LeBlanc. So I've done it all. I've done sitcoms, I've done single camera, I've done stand-up, I've done live sketch TV, and I sketch. I sketch myself.
Okay, can you show us some of your sketches?
Well, Tova, it's funny you should ask that, because I happen to have my book with me. There it is.
Can you open up and show? You look fabulous in it, but can we see some of the sketches of the other?
I just want you to enjoy that cover for a little bit. Look at that, huh? Yeah, so this book is filled with a lot of caricatures that I've done over the last few years. And it's not just characters, though. It's also accompanying stories about my experience with that person, or just my musings if I didn't know them. Like here is Freddie Mercury is one of them I did. And wait, I should have had bookmarkers in here. Here's Prince.
I love it.
Right. And
Yeah.
then we go on to, oh, we got so many here. Look at this. We got Billie Eilish. And we got a lot in here. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
And here's Howard Stern. I've been on his show several times. I don't think he would like that picture.
So that would be one of my questions, really.
Yeah.
Because in sketch comedy, no, in caricature, it's basically, it requires exaggeration.
It
requires exaggeration.
It is.
So my question is, so when you do it, the exaggeration, you probably pick up one of the worst features of that person. And so were you surprised that some of those people didn't really talk to you later on, or didn't react?
Well, they did not talk to me. It's just that I didn't hear from them. So they did not talk to me. Is that a double negative? That's a double negative, right, Eric? They did not talk to me?
Officially, yes, a double
But it's
negative.
still permissible in our society.
I know your intent.
Yeah.
But you would have been better off if you did caricature of the same people, but give like an improved version of them. Just think about all the love you would have gotten.
Well, it's funny.
Hey, Kevin, Billie Eilish would say, Kevin, come over. We'll play some music for you. You know,
I don't know about that. I don't know, Tova. I think you're barking up the wrong tree with that idea. I'll be honest with you. But you know what I was going to do is they wanted to include a caricature of me to show people that I could take a laugh too. You know, and so I was thinking maybe I should draw a really handsome picture of me as opposed to all the other ones. But I ended up with this one right here. Yeah. But yeah, you know what it's like, because you're always looking for the features that are outstanding on people's face.
Yes.
And those let's call them flaws. And so when I'm walking down the street and I see people passing me by, I automatically see caricatures walking by me. It's like I'm in a fun house, and
Yes.
you know, it's the mirror, the fun house. And it's almost like a living hell, to be honest with you.
I know. I had to learn Morse code in the army, and later on, it's a language. So the army in Israel. But anyway, every sound was a letter to me. And it was just annoying because it was all cacophony sounds that was a language.
You remember that?
No, I really made an effort to forget it, to tell you the truth. It really interrupted with other thoughts that I had in mind.
Let me just try. Let me just see if you forgot it. Anything?
No.
What's that say? Did I say anything?
No.
Kevin, I don't think you're allowed to use that word in here. I'm sorry, bud.
So I want to tell you that reading your book, which I enjoyed enormously, I know Eric did too, really, and it's such a brilliant thing, by the way, also to combine your art and your caricature and then tell a story about somebody. I think it's really a brilliant idea. I don't know who came up with it, but it's a brilliant idea. But
my mother came up with it. No, I came up with it, Tova. In fact, you know, you're not the only one to say that. I got an email from Steve Martin saying it's a great idea to combine the little memoir thing with the pictures. Yeah. So you are validated on that.
But you know what struck me the most about when I started to read your thing, how studious you were at the start of your career in learning and practicing your craft, whether it was drawing, whether it was stand-up, you know, and you know, then there's like some people who say, oh, well, you know, how did you become a stand? Well, I was funny at school, so then I just went to open mic and immediately people love me and blah, 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 blah. Is that really true? You have such experience with comedy people? Because if it's true, we hate those people.
Well, I have experience with those people now because I've been doing this for 40 years, over 40 years. But I am not really from the mold of a typical stand-up comic who come from bad neighborhoods and dysfunctional families and you know, whatever else. And I come from a good family, very healthy, loving parents and brothers and sisters, and good neighborhood. Oh, we weren't wealthy. I mean, sure, we were in the bottom 500 Fortune Club of Forbes, but not the top. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of had to go in with that kind of a you know, I wasn't like, I didn't have the head start that all these people that came from bad families had. You understand? They were much luckier than I was as far as stand-up comedy went. But yeah, I had to work at it a lot. And I studied a lot of different comedians and I tried a lot of different things. Some worked, some didn't. And I could honestly say, and I was prepared to bomb a lot, but I didn't really bomb in the early days. I've bombed since then, like once or twice, maybe. One time was at Camp Pendleton in LA, and it was a show just for Marines 18 and younger that you know didn't go to the show where the married service people went. So I was just not ready for this. And the host was a rapper, and then the headliner was some rapper guy I never heard of. And I come out there, and I have not seen so many Marines at once go to their cell phones and start checking their emails. They didn't know who Hans and Franz were. They couldn't relate at all.
Oh my God, it's so funny. So let me ask you a little bit. You had a series of successful movies that you did with Adam Sandler, who I think you worked with the Saturday Night Live, but you made a whole bunch of movies with him. Is there a particular chemistry with him that put the two of you together, some kind of a shortcut, some kind of shared sensibility?
Let me tell you something. There are no shortcuts.
In comedy.
There are no shortcuts.
In comedy.
Only on the road. Only when you're traveling somewhere. Well, Adam and I go way back. We go back to the 1900s, at least. And I remember when I was on Saturday Night Live, it was at the beginning, the first couple of years. I don't remember when, but I went over to catch the comic strip in the East Side. was just going in to do a set, and Adam was on stage, and he wasn't that good. He wasn't good. There weren't that many people there. And, you know, he's really low energy. You know, he's talking like this, you know, what if the guy comes in and says, hey, Will, you know, he was very low energy and he wasn't doing well. And, you know, afterwards, I didn't know him. We talked for a little bit and we walked down to another comedy club, Catch a Rising Star. It's not there anymore. And we had a nice talk. And the next day he went back to NYU and told all his roommates that he had seen me, and they all got excited, you know. And then eventually, of course, Adam got on SNL and he started doing the Weekend Update stuff. I think that's where he really scored big, you know, the redheaded sweatshirt and those kinds of things. And ever since then, we've been friends. You know, he would chase me down to do all these movies. And I will tell you something, a lot of those roles that he gave me are very embarrassing roles for me, almost all of them. You know, he always puts me in this position, like in Little Nicky, I played Tithead, the gatekeeper of hell. And I had two breasts on my head, and I'm telling you, the makeup department did an amazing job. They looked so real, and they felt real, I would imagine. And and everybody wanted to talk to me and feel my breasts on my head all day long. And a lot of times, I had to stop them and say, "Excuse me, my eyes are down here. My eyes are down here." And then when they took them off at the end of the day, Tova, nobody even cared about me. It's like I was invisible. Hey, what happened? So I get it now. I totally get it.
You know, it's interesting because if he was that cruel to you, I was surprised that you didn't have a sketch portrait caricature of Adam Sandler in your book. I thought you were trying to stay in his good stand, but
no,
payback time. Payback.
I don't draw my close friends. I want to keep them as friends.
That's what I was thinking. Eric, you have a question for Kevin?
Oh, sure. So what in your book?
First of all, Eric,
yes,
you stay out of this. You stay out of this.
I'm sorry, sir.
Give me 50. Give me 50 push-ups.
Oh, my dad was the Marine, but it stopped there.
Oh, really? Okay.
And he would not have looked at his cell. Well, also didn't have a cell phone, but yeah, he would have been all about you. So I apologize that the 18-year-old version of my dad wasn't there at Camp Pendleton for you.
I wish he was.
But one thing in the book I really was loving was when this moment, I don't remember if it's a chapter about Lorne Michaels or Dana Carvey, in I Exaggerate, My Brushes with Fame, now available on Amazon on all formats, in a place called Bookstores, which you may have heard of, younger folk.
Yeah, that's right. Or you can go to kevinnealonart.com and they have them there, or kevinnealon.com.
So many options, so many ways to get the book. You have no excuse. Do it by the end of this talk,
You know
and we'll throw you
what?
out of school.
And you know what? I really, really enjoyed it because there's chapters. So it's fun. It's easy. You read a chapter, you read 2, and then, 2 days later, you read 3. And it's easy instead of like continuing the whole book today. Who can finish books today?
To your point, Tova, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. And I was thinking about today, this would be a good book to have next to the toilet in the bathroom. You
Completely
sit down,
agree.
You sit down for 15, 20 minutes, you read a chapter or 2, and then you head out.
Well, I was walking around Burbank, of course, the center of Southern California, in my opinion, because I own a house here. And I was listening to Audible, and the chapters were terrific. And Kevin, of course, does his own voice on the audiobook. You don't have to worry about a actor doing Kevin. He does Kevin very well. And the chapter you had, I think it was about Lorne Michaels. It was Dana Carvey calls you from Lorne Michaels' house. And for those who don't know, and I listen, some of our students are young. Lorne Michaels has been the producer of Saturday Night Live for close to 50 years.
Creator, producer, yeah.
And creator and writer and everything. And maybe the inspiration for Dr. Evil too, but we'll talk about that later.
Wow, you are good.
My mom let me stay up way too late when I was way too young. So you talked about like Dana Carvey calls you all excited and he's like, "You're never going to believe who's here. It's Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd." And you're both freaking out. And he goes, "Oh, and I told Lauren to consider you as a cast member." And then later on, he calls you again. He goes, "You're never going to believe it. Steve Martin's here." And you're both freaking out. And he goes, "Oh, and he's going to audition you." And what I thought was so amazing about that was like, I don't know, me as a kid watching Saturday Night Live. It was me as a junior high student watching you on Saturday Night Live, the kind of excitement you guys created. So I was wondering, what was it like for you then to work on a show that you idolize, and also to work with Steve Martin on Roxanne, one of your first acting gigs? Were you able to just go and do the work, or was it like, oh my God, I'm in a holy place here?
Yeah. Well, I grew up loving Steve Martin. I didn't grow up. I mean, I was already like in my late teens, early 20s, and I saw him. I discovered Steve Martin, as I say in the book, only because none of my friends heard of him. And I was seeing him on Saturday Night Live, on The Tonight Show, and he was that wild and crazy guy. And I eventually went to see him in concert with the Blues Brothers opening for him at the Universal Amphitheater. And I was just a huge fan. And then when I got this movie, Roxanne, I didn't even have to audition for it. I think he heard, because he was good friends with Lauren Michaels, that I was going to be a cast member. And he decided he would put me in. It wasn't a big part. I played drunk number 2 in the beginning of the movie. I was dueling him. I had a ski pole and he had a tennis racket. And that scene took maybe 2 hours to shoot. And we were in this beautiful little ski town in British Columbia called Nelson. And me and this other guy playing drunk number 1, I was so jealous of his role. We just stayed there for 3 weeks and we loved it. We had bikes, mountain bikes, and we were jacuzziing. And that was a really great experience. So, yeah, so the whole audition thing was crazy. Dana recommended me. And I think what Lauren was looking for was some kind of a chemistry between the cast and a synergy with the writers, because I think that was the problem the year before, where they almost pulled the plug on the show because the ratings were so low. It wasn't they were bad actors, because it was Anthony Michael Hall, Robert Downey Jr., Julia Louis-Dreyfus, I think. And Lauren realized that he needs chemistry with the group. So Dana and I were friends from LA. I've known him for a long time. I was dating Jan Hooks. And before I dated her, we were friends for about 6 years. So there was that chemistry right there with 3 people. And then the rest kind of melded in too. So you really needed that on that show. And that first season, everything kind of took off. And I remember the first sketch I did, Eric, was Mr. Subliminal, which was taken from my stand-up act. And I was really kind of tense about going on because I think it was one of the earlier sketches. And they're away for commercial. I'm standing there, and a subliminal, Tova, is where I insert words into a sentence.
I know that.
You're on that, okay. Because like Eric was saying, some of the younger people don't know my stuff.
Thank you for the compliment. That was around before Saturday Night Live. My first job was in Godfather 2, so make the
Get out of here. Which character did you play? One time, my friend Gary Shandling, the comedian, the great late Gary Shandling, he was on stage and he goes to a woman in the audience. He said, "Oh, ma'am, when are you expecting your baby?" And she goes, "Oh, I'm not pregnant." And the whole audience went, "Ooh." And he goes, "Oh, really? Okay, because I saw a glow about you. You had a real glow about you." So, so I go to SNL. So I'm standing there waiting to go on with Mr. Subliminal. And I'm really kind of nervous because this is it, Saturday Night Live. I'm going to do my first sketch, trying to remember my lines. And 5 seconds before we came back from commercial break, Lauren Michaels. He puts his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Are you sure this is what you want?" I said, what I don't want is you distracting me right now.
Oh my God. So Eric, I thought you would ask a question about sketch comedy. So
of course.
So Kevin,
so it's, as far as then writing sketches for Saturday Night Live, and also I was hoping you would talk a little bit about that process, because for those who don't know the behind the scenes of Saturday Night Live, I mean, I'm amazed anyone can survive on that show for more than a few years just because of the schedule. But in terms of that, like, what was it like for you then? Like, as someone who had background as a stand-up and then started to do some acting, all of a sudden now you're having to write sketches for not only any show, but the sketch comedy show, really the sort of gold standard of all sketch comedy shows.
Yeah. Well, even though it was Saturday Night Live, which was, an institution in our world, like I said, the year before, the ratings were really low. So expectations were really low too for our cast. People were thinking maybe that format has had it, it's been done to death. So there was I thought of it as low expectations. And as a comedian, most comedians are very observant. So as far as writing sketches, I watched, I read a lot of sketches that people had done. I saw the format. You have to get used to what kind of format they're doing. And there were no computers back then. Again, this is the back of the 1900s. And so they had typewriters. So we wrote on legal pads, on yellow legal pads, and then we gave them to the PAs, and they would type it up. And then we take our horses over to the writer's wing. And sometimes the carriages would break down, Eric, and we'd have to make a new wood wheel for it. So anyway, I learned how to, I have a college degree, so I was kind of smart in that way. And I learned how to type in high school. But so some of the writers that were there from before, you kind of saw the way they did it. You saw the format that they did, and you saw that the sketches couldn't be too long. I think no more than 8 pages. 8 was kind of heavy. So if you can get in and out in 5 or 6 pages, that was good. And then you just do it. You just start doing it, and you watch and you learn. And that's what I did. And luckily, the first sketch I submitted got put on. So I was lucky about that.
Not to say, I don't think most writers or performers have had that luck with their first time at bat. What do you think it was about that sketch? Was that a Mr. Subliminal sketch, or was it? It
was a Mr. Subliminal. But I tell you, I do remember one thing I learned, and you learn this by rote. You the nature of Saturday Night Live, the sketches don't have endings. And I put an ending on my sketch once, and Lauren and the whole place stopped and go, "Oh, I see. So this guy finally got to do what he wanted to do. Okay, I see." So you'll notice, at least during my time, there was no real ending to the sketch.
Is that because, like, today's sequels, or meaning next episode? Is that why it opened it up? Why? Why was there no ending?
It was like a painting. You can interpret the way you wanted how things ended up, I guess. And I could just be interpreting it like that, and it may not even be true, but I was surprised that they didn't want endings on the sketches. And I don't know what it's like now. I don't watch it too much anymore, but because I've always had trouble staying up to watch that show. Even when I was on it, I thought, how much longer? I got to go to bed. But I remember when I went in for my audition, as soon as I walked into Studio 8H, I got really tired, because I remember I used to fall asleep watching the show, and it was an association thing. I said, "Oh, this is making me tired in here."
Let me ask you, I'll pivot a little bit for maybe something that the student know too, because, Weeds was really a phenomenal, groundbreaking show. Yes. And I even checked the date. It was at least 3 years before Breaking Bad. How did you get cast? How did you get that role? What did you have to do to get this role?
A lot of people ask me that, although they phrase it more like this: how did you get that role? Well, it was after SNL a few years. I'd done a few sitcoms that failed, and then I got this script sent to me called Weeds. Excuse me. And I see that name on the cover, and immediately I thought, oh man, it's like another Adam Sandler film. I mean, these shows, these stoner shows have been done to death, and I was kind of disappointed. And I started reading it, and the more I read, I thought, oh, this is good. I like the story. I like the characters. So I had to audition for it. You would think at my stature, you wouldn't have to audition anymore, but yeah, you always do.
The legend had to audition.
A legend. I told him that. I said, I'm a legend. I don't audition. All right, send me the sides. So I go into the room, and there's some really, really good actors in there. De Niro, Meryl Streep, Laurence Olivier. And guess what? I beat them all out for the role. You know why, Tova? I'm a pro. That's why I'm a pro.
All those studies, all those studious things that you did when you started up.
Well, luckily,
I'm lucky.
That role was meant for me. It really was. I mean, it was really, when Jenji Cohen, who created the show, met with me and read with me in the room, she just knew it right there that I was the one.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I wish everything came that easily.
Did you go in smoking, or did you just come in?
No, I didn't go in smoking, but it's a good idea. A little late now, Tova. Where were you when I needed you? The thing is, a lot of people think it's real pot on that show, but it's not real pot on any show or cigarettes. Yes. What it is, it's a honey rose herb. which is a very mild herb. But there is some danger to it too, because we would get it from the honey rose herb cartel in Colombia. So you have to really watch your P's and Q's. No, but it did make me a little lightheaded because I don't smoke. And in the pilot where I'm smoking in the RV or whatever it was,
Yes.
I smoked so much of that stuff, take after take, and we had the windows rolled up with no AC. And this was out in Valencia. It was about 120 degrees, and it was so hot. And I remember going home that night and going to bed. And this was just a pilot at the time; it wasn't picked up yet. And I laid in my bed, and I could feel how sore my chest, my lungs were. And I thought to myself, stupid, stupid, stupid. Why did you risk your life just for a stupid pilot that'll never be picked up probably? And then it was picked up, and I was glad I risked my life for it.
We agree. We agree. It was really, I just watched it in preparation for this because I haven't seen it for such a long time. It's even better now.
Is it really? I heard
It's really holding up. It is holding up because even though, the conceit of it, of selling, it's the characters, it's the town, it's the hypocrisy and everything that is happening, and that, it's just good drama and it's good comedy and it's great character and it really, really, really works. Why don't we open up to the students and see what their questions are? Because as fun as we have, it's for them.
We have a question here from Lucky Harmon. Lucky, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
So my question for Kevin is, I'm an up and coming actor, and I see he's did a lot of big things. And my question is, doing sketch comedy and breaking into acting, did that actually help you prosper as an actor, or was the actor thing more like something separate from that you had to really work at to get breakout roles?
Well, there's a lot of different levels to that. After you do Saturday Night Live, that's a boot camp for show business. If you could do that, you could do anything. It's like that Frank Sinatra song, so that helped me in my acting too, especially being in front of people and acting. I was doing some acting before that. It was just a bit part here and there and some commercials, but doing stand-up is really acting. It's
right.
When you're acting. So but yeah, I think it did help. It helps anytime you get on stage and you perform, it helps you with whatever you're doing in the future. But I know I took a lot of acting workshops too around LA because, like I said, all I wanted to do was stand up. I wasn't interested in acting. I wasn't interested. And I was sitting at the bar in the Improv, and a friend of mine comes along who happened to co-own the place at the time. And he said, "You ever think about acting?" I said, "No, not really. I just want to do stand up." He goes, "Well, because, sometimes casting agents come into the showroom and they'll like a comic and they'll want them to come in and do a cold reading." And so he kind of talked me into at least taking some workshops, and he just so happened to be teaching a workshop.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, I bounced from workshop to workshop, and I learned about how to perform in front of a camera, knowing where the camera was, where to stand, how to hit your marks. And that was all helpful too. So, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Sweet.
Okay.
We have another question here. This one is from Lisa Kaliani. Lisa, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
That's a good question. I think when I started,
Hi, Kevin.
Hi.
Sorry, my mic is like cutting in and out.
That's okay. That's okay. I listen in and out too, so that's not bad. What? I heard part of that. All right, well, that was a good question. Thanks for stopping by. It looks like her mic had cut out again.
I'll go ahead and
What is
pose your
her
question
question?
for her because I
Can you-
have it right here.
Okay.
Lisa asks or states that she loves to write sketch comedy and pilots, and she just started writing a few years ago. And she wants to know what advice you have for someone who wants to land a job in a writer's room.
Well, it's like anything else. You got to do it a lot. You do it a lot. You do it. I write a lot too. And you know what they say, writing is rewriting, because you're always finding new avenues to improve your film or your script or your sketch, whatever it is. So Yeah, I mean, I read a lot of those books. I read tons, every book out there, Sid Field's screenwriting class, and all of them. And they got to a point where I was reading so many of these books, and it was really a stall tactic, so I wouldn't have to write. And I finally one day I said, all right, enough already. I'm going to write something. And a friend of mine said, as far as advice, he wrote a movie that was produced. It wasn't a bad movie. I said, what's your advice on writing? He said, well, I promise myself every day I will sit down and write for 2 minutes. That's all I need to write for is 2 minutes. And of course, every time he sits down, it's longer than 2 minutes. But that gets him to sit down. Yeah. So yeah, the part about writing is doing it like that, writing every day, watching other people's writing, watching how shows are done. If you want to end up in a writer's room, make sure you study that show that you're interested in being a writer on, and really watch it and watch the way it's written, and then put together a spec script for it.
Thank you. We have another question here. This one's from Musa Aztep. Musa, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
Another good question. I say it's the same answer as the last one.
All right, well, I will, I guess this is just you and me, Kevin. I'll pose Musa's as well. Musa asks, states that his first stand-up show went really well, but the next 2 shows went very badly. He's asking if he should go on stage a lot, or should he do a lot of preparation before going on stage?
Well, I don't think you could do one or the other. You got to do both, but that's not uncommon. I know a lot of people that went on stage the first time and they killed. And it's almost like the second time you put too much into it and you had too many high hopes and you got too nervous. But that's the way it is. You go up and maybe there's less people in the audience, or maybe and I don't believe in that rule. It's never the audience, because I've seen that sometimes it is the audience. Plus it makes you feel better about yourself too. But yeah, I would just keep getting up and getting up. It's not pleasant to bomb, but I think somebody asked Edison, how do you continue to keep going on when you're trying to invent the light bulb and you failed so many times? Why would you keep going? He said, well, I didn't see it as failure. I saw it as feedback.
Yeah.
So I try to keep that in mind whenever I'm failing at something. You kind of learn from your mistake. I guess that goes back to that.
Well, Carnegie said that you make a sale every 25 attempts. So every time he lost a sale, he got very excited because it got him closer to number 25.
You know what? He taught me how to win friends and influence people, that guy. All I had to do was read the cover of the book.
Okay, who's next?
We have a question from Bruna Portugal from our LA campus. Bruna, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
Hello, hi Kevin.
Hola. ¿Qué
Hi.
pasa?
My name is Bruna Portugal, but I'm from Brazil. My question is, I'm a stand-up comedian and it's pretty much like confusing. What do you think is the best way to reach out to a booker in a comedy club?
Well, first of all, let me show you my favorite comedian. Steve Martin, who was in my book, I Exaggerate, My Brushes with Fame. Talk about reaching out.
To it at the end.
Would you call me a booker? Because I have a book that I wrote.
Yeah, I just posted about your book on my Instagram.
Thank
Swear
you
to
so
God,
much.
just did it.
You're the best. Thank you so much.
I know, you're welcome.
Well, first of all, you got to have an act. Do you have an act?
Of course I do. I already performed for like the Netflix The Joke Festival, at the Laugh Factory, the Comedy Store, improv, but sometimes it's difficult like to keep going, I'm not a regular. So I have to be looking for shows. Every time I perform in those clubs, it's through a show, but I'm not a regular and I want to become one. So
yeah, I mean, everybody wants to become one.
Right.
The whole field of stand-up comedy is different than it was when I started. It was such a novelty job back then. There was a handful of good comedians out there, and there was only one brick wall, and that was at the Improv. And now every comedian, every comedy club has a brick wall that came from the Improv here in New York. In fact, I walked by it the other day, the original Improv, and I performed there a few times, and I had to follow Robin Williams, which was not not a pleasant thing to have to do. But you know, sometimes you gotta. That's what you have to do. In did I say Robin Williams? Yeah.
Oh my God.
I exaggerate my personal fame. So, yeah, I mean, you know, you're doing the right thing. You keep getting up at the Laugh Factory, in the Comedy Store, wherever you can get up. Somebody gave me advice when I was starting. They say, just get up whenever you can, anywhere, anytime. Just keep getting up, and then keep writing. Okay. And so you're doing the right thing. Keep getting up, and eventually there might be a booker in the audience, and they'll see you and want to use you. Right?
Okay. Yes.
What kind of material do you do? What do you talk about?
Oh, I'm a Christian whore. So I literally, I'm sorry, guys, I'm cursing. I literally talk about how I was growing up in a tough Christian family. I got married when I was 19, and then I got divorced and moved to LA and became a whore, but I'm still Christian. So I talk about that. How is?
Did you say a whore?
Yes.
What is a whore?
I mean, a Christian one. I know a Christian one. I go to clubs at Saturday night, and Sunday morning I'm at church. So
oh, I see.
Yeah. And the best thing is, like, my favorite club is right next door to my church. So I just, yeah.
Right.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, I'd say just keep doing what you're doing, and you know, you will attract the bookers, and word of mouth will get around. I think if you try too hard to get a booker, or they don't know about you, or you know, what you can do is have them come to a club and see you sometime.
Yes.
Right?
People tell me to hang out, like, in the clubs a lot, just to do network and everything. But
handouts.
Yes, just be talking to people all the time. But
yeah, it's just a process for everybody. For me, I wasn't in that big of a hurry. I was just trying to get my act together. I moved to LA before I even had an act, which probably wasn't a great idea, but there I was. And it's just about getting up all the time. And like for me, when I got on the Tonight Show, I was doing stand-up for about 6 years. And it just eventually happened where people would hear about you and you get on stage and they would, you know, and have you come on the show because you were ready. You got to make sure you're ready before you do these things.
yes, I know. I'm ready though. I mean,
okay, well, you have confidence. That's a big hurdle. You got over the confidence hurdle.
She should go on the Christian network. Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
Thank you so much,
Their
guys.
comedy club. The Christian have comedy clubs?
I'm sure they do. They have comedians.
Yeah, great. Okay, who's next, Mike?
We have a question here from Rahim. Rahim, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
Hello, Kevin. I'm currently studying acting, and I want to know, how did you manage your career to follow such a consistent direction? I've remembered you constantly finding your way into smart and likable roles. From SNL to Glenn Martin and Curb Your Enthusiasm, you've always held yourself in such a smart yet funny manner. How do you keep yourself so composed?
Well, you forgot Tidhead, the gatekeeper of hell. So, you know, I got very lucky. I really got lucky. Like I said, all I wanted to be was a stand-up. And I still do stand-up. Even during the hiatus on Saturday Night Live or the off nights, even during Weeds, I would continue to do it. That's like when the pandemic hit, all the comics kind of were shocked. We were shocked because we were doing stand-up all the time. To take 2 weeks off at all was a huge thing. So now here we are, a year and a half, 2 years not doing stand-up. And that's why I wrote my book, actually, to draw caricatures, because I found out that caricatures is like a non-verbal way of getting people to laugh. Like there's Chris Rock.
Yeah.
And it filled the void mostly from not doing stand-up. It's just writing and, you know, painting. But I was lucky. I was lucky to get on SNL. I was lucky to get Weeds. It's just the opportunity rising and you being there and not saying no. I always showed up. That's what you have to do. No matter how many times you get rejected. And that's what you do when you live in LA, you go on a lot of auditions and most of them you don't get. And then you feel like a Christian whore when you leave.
You know, Molly Shannon, when she was here, said that she tried to get on Sunday Night Live and she just couldn't, she didn't get it. And she didn't have a community or anything. And she basically joined a small theater. And in that theater, she stayed there maybe for 5 years and developed all those characters.
Yeah.
And after 5 years, she was ready. She went for an audition and she got in. So that's another venue.
That's another way to do it. You know,
Yeah.
I think if people are interested in getting on SNL as an actor, and I didn't do this, but an improv group like the Groundlings in LA or Second City in Chicago is very helpful because you come up with characters.
Yes.
You know, I didn't come up with, I didn't have any characters. I just had jokes, you know, but you learn quickly when you're thrown in there with others, you learn quickly.
Thank you.
We have a question here from Ivana Salcedo. Ivana, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
Hi, Kevin. First, I just want to say that yesterday I saw an article about your book and I saw that you drew Dana Carvey and Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I begged my daddy, yes, I begged my dad to buy the book. And then this morning I got, the email saying that you would do this talk and I got really excited. So I'm very glad that I get to be talking to you now.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad your father bought the book.
Yeah. So my question for you is more than asking for advice. I'm just curious. What inspired you to start, performing?
Well, I love stand-up comedians. I thought it was such a great craft that they were doing. And I would watch these comedians come out on the Tonight Show or some of the afternoon talk shows. And I just thought, they're just standing there. They're talking and they're creating these absurd scenarios and they're getting paid for it. And people are loving them and they're applauding them and they're getting free dinners and the best table in restaurants. I thought, that doesn't sound like a bad job. That doesn't sound like a bad job. But also, aside from that, I just love making people laugh. I used to memorize the jokes in the back of the Parade magazine, which is a magazine that came with a Sunday paper. In the back, they had whatever comics were back then, and they had a column, My Favorite Jokes. And I would memorize those jokes. And then when I was at a party, I was like 17 at the time, I would recite those jokes to people like they were my own. I would say, hey man, did you guys hear about this guy downtown? He robbed a fire truck today. He got in the fire truck, he robbed the fire truck. And they're like, no, really? I said, yeah, crazy, right? Yeah. Did they catch him? He said, yeah, some guy stole a cop car, caught him. Yeah. So, I like doing that stuff. And I was so inspired and amused at how these stand-up comics were getting sitcoms. A lot of them were getting sitcoms back then. There was a guy called Freddie Prinze that his son is an actor now. You may not even know his son, but Freddie Prinze Jr., but his father was a famous stand-up comic back then. And J.J. Walker, all these guys and there were stand-ups got their own shows, and even Letterman, of course. And but I like that whole notion of standing in front of people on a stage and making them laugh. It was to be able to control the whole room, the emotion like that made you feel really good.
Absolutely. I think comedians are just the most special people, and I think that you're really good at it. I love what you do.
Thanks, Ivana. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Good luck.
We have a question here from Diego Pereira from our Florence campus. Diego, we've enabled you to unmute yourself. What is your question for Kevin?
Hi, Kevin. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, great. What's the hardest challenge you faced when coming up?
I will tell you the hardest challenge for me was I had driven out to LA to do stand-up. I had never really done it before. And I gave myself 2 years to become successful, or at least to feel like I was going to make it. And after like 3 or 4 months, sleeping on friends' couches, going to these open mic nights, I started getting homesick because I had a younger brother who could have been my son. He was 16 years younger than me. So whenever I went home for holidays, which didn't happen until after the first year, I would hang out. I'd be happy to be home. And he would love having me around. And after being home for a week or two, I'd start packing my bags to go back to LA, and he would come in the room and he would notice that I was getting ready to go, and he would get sad. That would make me sad. And then I'd drive away. My friend would drive me to the airport. When you had friends driving you to the airport back then, and I'd turn around and he'd be chasing after me on his bike with tears, coming out. So it was the sacrifice, I think, for me, of not seeing him grow up so much and not spending more time with my family. In fact, I remember calling my parents, and I was about 23, 24 at this time. And I called them from a payphone booth on Beverly and Van Ness. And I had enough money for gas to get home, or I had enough money for the cleaning and first month of a really ratty apartment, not too far from that payphone. And I told my parents that. I told my father, I said, Dad, I have enough money for gas or the first month of an apartment, and I don't know what to do. I'm getting homesick, and I'm not sure what to do. What do you think? And this is how great my father was. I know he wanted me to come home. I know that he missed me, and the rest of the family did. And he said, Kev, you're a big boy. Stay out there and give it a shot. And I literally cried after I hung up the phone, because I knew he was a good dad, and he was wanting what was best for me. And had he not said that, I'd probably be working back in Bridgeport, Connecticut somewhere, or be retired by now and had worked in a factory or something.
Well, I'm glad you didn't give it up, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you have to make sacrifices, I think, no matter what you do. And that's the hardest part for me, is making a sacrifice. Like right now, I'm in New York, and I have a 15-year-old son, and I feel some of the same things. Like I'm saying, what am I doing? I need to be home more, because this time's going to go by quickly. And so that's something that I'm really reevaluating to see what kind of, so that's why I like doing the artwork, because it keeps me home more. I exaggerate my brushes with fame, available wherever fine books are sold. Eric, I'm a salesman. Oh, you got one too? Oh, that's the picture. I like it.
Yes, I'm speaking so they can look at mine too. Yes, I exaggerate. Also the audio book too, just for, I think it was like $7 more. You get Kevin Nealon's voice with his pictures and his words. Heck of a bargain.
I don't think the audiobook was that much.
No.
Because you couldn't hold it in your hands. Is that the audiobook? Oh, nice.
No. This is the Kindle copy I bought, and then I bought on top of that the Audible. I wanted Kevin Nealon every angle I could get him.
And in 100 years, they will be like, your kids are going to hold that up like you were holding the, right?
By the way, Tova, this would make a great gift with the holidays coming up. Easy to wrap, easy to carry. It's not a coffee table book. It's just good, solid, good size.
I can see a row of people on the beach in Maui at the Four Seasons, and they're like all reading this book.
I know.
Row and row of people.
Did I tell you that I used to sketch people on airplanes? I still do. But these are people that were on my airplane.
Yeah.
And
amazing.
A lot of them are sleeping. They don't know I'm sketching them, and I never show it to them. But a lot of them
not creepy at all.
It's with their mouth open. I don't know if you can see that. Where is it? Yeah.
What happens if they see it in the book and say, wait a minute, that's me, and he published it?
I don't think they'll recognize themselves.
Okay, so we coming really to the end of the show. Okay, Eric.
David Letterman, I like it.
You're coming. I know, it's amazing, because when I watched you and Adam Sandler talking about when you're hiking and talking about when you were going to go on David Letterman and how nervous you were. And it's kind of amazing how people and comedian, and I remember Jonah Hill was like so nervous, and I said to him, what's going on? I mean, you are in front of people all your life. And he said, yeah, but that's a character, but this is going to be me. So it's so curious why this comedian who go out every night in front of people and they seem like they're so in their element get nervous.
Well,
Especially the David Letterman. Yeah,
well, also Johnny Carson back then, he was the big one.
I see.
The first time I did Johnny Carson, I was so nervous. I walked out from behind the curtain. I forgot my act. I couldn't remember my act. And I got to that spot where I'm supposed to stand. The audience is still applauding. I can't remember my act. And the last clap ends and I remember my act. But I was so nervous. When I was doing my act, my mouth was dry. I got cotton mouth. So that when I smiled, my lip stuck to my gum up there. I didn't want to lick it because then people would know I'm nervous. So I thought, well, maybe I can adjust by bringing the lower lip up. Yeah, you know, but that wouldn't look good. So yeah, that was really that I was full of nerves for that. But now I'm pretty much dead inside.
Well, the stakes were so high. I guess when the stakes are so high somehow.
Yeah.
You know, I also want to tell the people that they can do a double thing. They can not only read your book, toileted otherwise, but they can watch Hiking with Kevin on YouTube.
Yes. Yes. It just
Because
premiered. Yeah.
I love it. You have also such interesting talk with people. And of course, it's like Seinfeld comedian with coffee, except, you know, you save on gas and design.
Except there's no coffee and there's no cars.
Exactly.
I'm doing all the filming.
Yes.
My show is it's a lot more mom and pop kind of thing. It's a little more, you know, raw, and I like it like that. I don't like all the glitzy kind of a shiny thing coming in, and you know, the barista. I like the just being out in the woods, and because I found out that people are so forthcoming when they're out in the wilderness like that. They are because there's no audience, there's no light. And I've done over 100 hikes so far with various celebrities, mostly in the canyons of Malibu and LA. And today's the 27th, right? Yeah. Today I aired the first one of the 4th season with Paul Rudd. So people can go on YouTube now and check it out.
Yeah. Let me ask you, how do you film it? Because I saw your hand like this and I thought, oh my God, is he walking a dog that is going in front of him? But when I saw Lynn Miranda, I saw you holding some kind of, you know.
It's a selfie stick with a GoPro on the end. And I just hold it out there. And the GoPro's got a little bit of a fisheye lens to it. So it kind of captures everything. And then I started off with just a cell phone on a selfie stick, and it was really bouncy. This was like 5-6 years ago. It was bouncy. They didn't have the stabilizers in them that they have now. And I missed a lot because the microphone picked up a lot of wind. And as I went along, I got better and better with the equipment. Like now I fly a drone. I have a drone that I fly to get the aerial shots. And I have, you know, a nice GoPro 10, a black 10 it's called, on the end of a carbon graphite selfie stick. And I got the RF things, the mics to put in there. And then I go home and I edit on a Premiere Pro. In fact, I'm editing one right now. And I'm excited that season 4 has started.
Yes.
I have some great guests on.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I suggest a regimen of starting with a hike and with you hiking, but we are watching it. It's called Hiking with Kevin. And then basically continue with chapters of your book.
Yes, but Tova, I'm not so sure about the hiking now, because when I was on Weeds, I used to hike early in the morning and it was still almost dark out. And I bring my script and I learn my lines. And one day I was hiking, I was about 30 minutes up and I was the only one on the trail, and I heard a deep growl just off to my side, about 10 yards. I could feel it in my chest, and I knew it was a mountain lion. And so I hurried up this trail, and when I came back 2 hours later, everybody was hiking, nothing going on. The next day, they caught a 200-pound mountain lion on Sunset and right by the entrance to the park. So you cut to today. My wife calls me and she says, there's traffic backed up on Sunset. There's a mountain lion, a huge mountain lion that's running around. They're trying to get it. And they put a dart, they sedated it and they're going to move it somewhere, but they're around and it's getting a little scary.
Oh, so it's not the same mountain lion that just waited for you all those years.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is my hikes are a lot quicker now. In and out, baby.
In the daylight. And in daylight.
Daylight, yeah. Yeah.
I
You carry pepper spray.
Yeah. But just to finish, where's that hiking trail that you did with Adam Sandler and the Irish guy? Sorry.
Conan O'Brien. And it was the same trail. That was in Pacific Palisades, maybe a stone throw from Adam's house.
I see.
But you know what's funny, Tova? I've done like I said, over 100 of these hikes. And I remember every trail, and whoever the guest was, I remember what trail we went on.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you play golf, you remember exactly where the ball landed the last time you were on that hole. You know, for some reason, it's like ingrained in your head.
Really? I have to relearn every time I go to play from the beginning, all the rules. Okay. Thank you so much. It was such a treat for all of us.
Man, I wish I had something to plug while I was on here, but
I'll bring mine up too. Hold on.
yeah, might as well.
Why should you be alone in the
Yeah.
public? Well, it's just a beautiful drawing of David Letterman that you did.
Oh, that's a good one, right?
Which I think I'm going to look like pretty soon, actually. So this might be my future.
Did you guys see this movie?
Yes.
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked her. That was a great character.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
and I was just one thing I was just going to say, Kevin, you brought up your parents, you brought up your children. So I wanted to say my mom, who allowed me to watch all those early Saturday Night Lives, but long before you were there.
Yeah.
But then also watched your seasons with me. She passed away 2 years ago, but she would have been thrilled to have watched this with you in attendance. So, and then also, and now I'm introducing your sketches to my son. I have two sons. My younger one, especially, has become already a big fan. So, thank you for making me look a little cooler just by being in a Zoom room with you.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. Not just with me,
and
but Anthony Bourdain as well.
And oh wait, I'm pointing the wrong way. And Tova Laiter, who has produced those films that are standing behind her, from Varsity Blues, Glory, and also she was an executive on Nixon, and has brought so many wonderful guests. So thank you, Tova, for bringing Kevin Nealon.
Tova, did you have anything to do with Hamilton?
I was the third from the left.
Thank you for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. I love to be in that whole world of education.
That's good to know. Really. I really, really want to thank you so much. This came together very quickly, and it's a sign of really somebody who I see it with a lot of very successful people when it's like they want to do it, they do it, it's done, and so on and so forth. And it's really, it's a sign of people that really move on. They move on, they do things, and they keep their word. And I think that that is a trait that I see in you, and I see in other people like this. And it's a pleasure. And thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tova. Thank you, Eric. Thanks, everybody.
Of course. Thanks for coming. Buy the book, y'all.
Yeah. Oh, did I tell you about my book?